back to the High Road Podcast. This is your host, Maddie, and today I have a question for you. Have you ever been in the darkest place of your life, and then someone walks in with nothing but sunshine and rainbows? You know the type. Everything in their world is perfect. They always have the right quote, the right smile, the right words about how everything happens for a reason. I remember sitting with someone like that once. They were overflowing with positivity and good intentions, and instead of feeling comforted, I felt worse. Because in that moment, their perfection didn't inspire me. It reminded me of how broken I felt, how far away I was from that version of okay. It made me wonder what's wrong with me that I can't even snap out of this. And maybe you've been there too, comparing yourself to others who seem to have it all together while you're just trying to hold yourself up. The truth is, in this fast-paced world, we're told you have to keep performing, keep smiling, keep proving that we're fine. But the reality is, sometimes we're not fine. And that has to be okay. This episode is about giving yourself permission to not be your best self every single day. To sit in the hard without shame. To recognize that not being okay doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. But we'll also talk about how to honor that space without getting stuck there. Because you don't belong in that darkness forever. So let's get into it. Today we're diving into the freedom of being real, even when real doesn't look perfect. Hey guys, I am so incredibly excited for this episode titled Screw Your Positivity, the Pressure to Have It All Together. So where this episode actually comes from is I ended my last podcast, the very last episode. I ended feeling really, really good about it. I absolutely loved the topic. I loved how, it flowed and the information that came about it. However, at the very end, I had ended it really positively, right? As normally the High Road Podcast does, and trying to be just very inspirational. And I had said something along the lines of bringing your best selves to the table, and something along the lines we can only bring our best selves. And then I kind of paused and I was like, you know what, we're going to go with that. However, what if you can't? I really sat on that for a long time, and I was like, there have been plenty of days where this episode, this exact one that I was doing at that time, I would have vomited and been like, this is BS. I don't want to hear it. Because sometimes when we are in such a place that is so challenging and feels so awful, we don't want to hear all the positive crap. We don't want to hear you need to bring your best self and, all of the things and keep your head up and you got to keep going and all of the phrases that people just think all right, let's bring it all to the table to become the very best versions of ourselves. And it's but in those moments, you don't see it like that. And so I had ended that feeling good, but then at the same time, I was I need to talk about what if we don't feel like we can actually be that? Or what if we're in a season where we don't feel like we can be the best versions of ourselves? And how do we give ourselves permission to be that? Because in this world today, we have to be able to give ourselves permission to not be okay. We have to pause. We have to stop running, going, running from our emotions and being told things that are intentionally trying to make us feel better, but actually make us feel worse. And so I want to really dive into those things and how incredibly important it is just to accept that we can't always be our best selves. We live in a toxic, positive culture. What does that mean? No matter what, we are told to keep our head up and, just be grateful. Be grateful for what you had. When I was going through some of the toughest times in my life, when I didn't know a single thing, couldn't control a single thing in my life. I felt like I couldn't even control me. I couldn't control my emotions. And that was a huge problem that I had. But everything around me was crumbling. And I didn't have the skills or the resources at the time, or so I thought, when I was in the middle of it, to understand why I was going through the things that I was going through and how to handle it. And so oftentimes I was so, there were times when I was super, super grateful for the positivity, but a lot of the times I just wanted to feel connected. I felt so connected when people told me their stories of when they had gone through similar things and similar hardships. Like if there was someone that came to me and gave me some advice, like keep your head up, keep going, and they had never gone through something that I was currently going through, I was kind of like, secretly, what the heck? Like, what are you talking about? You don't know. And as people, it's so important that we encourage each other and we support each other and we love each other, but at the same time that we're being mindful of what that person could possibly be going through. And if we haven't experienced something like that, saying something along those lines might feel like we are simply invalidating what they're feeling. And have we all done this? Yes, we've all done it. We've all said it. I've said it. I've said these things out of my mouth where I'm like intentionally being positive, but kind of in this toxic way. And why is it toxic? Well, it's because it's basically, again, invalidating that person to almost push down their feelings. Be like, you know what, you're gonna get through it. And then it's kind of like we're trying to rush that person. Sometimes we're trying to like rush that person to get through. And it's not how it works. We have to more so give that person permission to be in the space that they're in, to let them know. What is the first thing that we do when people are sad, right? When people are angry, when people are feeling something uncomfortable, we're trying to push them to get through it. It's going to get better. Keep your head up. Keep going. Keep going. And then it's like, we're not so focused on, okay, what they're feeling in that moment. We're trying to move on to the next thing. And people have to know that they can give themselves permission to feel what they need to feel. They don't need to move on to something else. Sometimes life is hard, and sometimes life sucks. And sometimes people just need to stop. Now, we live in a fast-paced world. It keeps going. We all understand that. It doesn't stop for anybody. It doesn't stop in the worst moments of our lives. And so that creates this cycle of pushing things down, and we're continuing to just run from our emotions. But without stopping and expressing or feeling what we need to, it just leaves us in this cycle of hurt and pain and not talking about what we need to, not expressing what we need to, and not going through what we need to. Because what we have to understand, the actual science behind the things that we feel in our body, is that our body actually holds on to those things. So when we experience stressors, big emotions, big feelings, our nervous system actually holds on to those things. And if we don't release them, they stay in our body. And what ends up happening? Years later, all of a sudden, you could become physically sick. All of a sudden, one day you're triggered. All of a sudden, one day you start crying out of nowhere and you can't stop. These are all natural things, how our body responds to holding these things in. As people, we're not supposed to. And we are not supposed to dismiss what we are going through, because we're going to go through hard things. One thing we have to understand is that it's okay if we don't have a solution. As people, we always want to have a solution for ourselves or for another person, right? When someone's going through something really hard, it's like so easy for me to be like, okay, let's do this. Let's do that. Like, let me come up with something how I want to fix this. And I'm just a natural fixer. It's something that I really had to learn very much the hard way, that not only I can't fix another person, but I can't always fix every situation. And in fact, a lot of our situations actually don't have a solution. And that is okay. If you ever struggle with that in relationships, let that be one thing that helps you because there's going to be so many times when you just don't have a solution. And like, whether it's in that moment, whether it's for a few days, or whether it's like, hey, the solution is actually that you're a different person and I'm a different person and we see this differently. But can we still be in a relationship? Can we still be in the same room? That's the solution. Sometimes the solution is not an actual black and white answer. And I had to rewire my brain to understand that I didn't always have to have answers for people. I didn't always have to fix everything. And I didn't always have to go to other people for them to come up with fixes and solutions for me, because this world is hard. And I had to rewire my brain. So I started to see a counselor, and she stopped validating me by like making me feel, continuously sorry for myself, because I already felt sorry for myself. So she taught me a lot of things, but one of the main things I should say was that she allowed me to give myself permission to feel. There were a lot of times I went into my counseling sessions and I would talk about what I felt, and she wouldn't right away like just tell me this is what you should do, or this is some advice that you should do, or what can you do to distract yourself from this. She told me real and raw things that I needed to hear. When I came to her about my biggest worries and my biggest fears and the things that were going on in my life, oftentimes I would explain a situation to her about something that I was fearful of happening. And her first response, and I had to get used to this, but her first response would be like, "You're right, that could happen." Because it wasn't her coming up with a solution for me. It was her telling me that I had to be mentally prepared for the hard thing. But here's some coping skills that you have. Here's some resources that you have so you can control what you need to. I didn't go to my counselor to seek all the rainbow, sunshine, positivity in the stinking world. And you know what? If that works for you, if that's what you need, maybe you really soak in all that positivity because you haven't had it before. That is wonderful and perfect and fine. But for me, I needed to be told the truth. And I didn't want all of the bullcrap that just was going to make me feel good. I was in a season that I didn't understand. I was in a time of my life where I felt like I had no control. And when we have people that are suffocating us with positivity, yes, is it with good intentions and love and care? Absolutely. And keep doing those things. The High Road podcast, I created this episode, this whole entire podcast, I should say, not just the episode. I created it to be inspirational, be inspiring, be encouraging, to share hard things. But I also had to sit back and be real and understand sometimes when people are going through hard things, that's not what they need either. Sometimes they don't need to be flooded with all of that stuff, because I remember the time in my life when I didn't want that. I didn't want to hear that. I wanted connection. I wanted someone to tell me the hard crap that they went through, so I didn't feel like I was the only dang one in the entire world. I wanted someone to explain to me that they had survived as a single mother, that they had survived doing it all on their own, that they had survived a unhealthy relationship, that they had, financially came out on top after suffering for years and years and years. I needed to feel connected in that way. I didn't want people to shove positivity down my throat when they didn't even know what they were talking about. So today, I want you to understand that we have to be able to give ourselves permission to feel what we need to. Permission to sit with the things that we need to. And granted, still understand that there are so many hard things in this life because this life moves so fast. We feel like we can't slow down. We feel like nothing stops because it doesn't. So we feel like we can't have a bad day. We feel like we can't be sad because the world is moving so incredibly quickly and nothing is stopping for us, that we feel like we just have to keep going. And that is not healthy. And in fact, we can't and should not. And we were never supposed to live like that. We live in a world where we have hustle culture, meaning we keep going even when we just don't feel like it. And what this sounds like, what this looks like, is society making us believe that you're weak if you don't get your mind right. You ain't worth anything if you don't work hard enough. You aren't shoving all your BS down and just figuring it out. And if you aren't your own savior, some of the biggest motivational speakers that I listen to literally all the time, like Eric Thomas, right? Love the guy. He's absolutely amazing. But I'm not going to listen to him if I'm really struggling mentally. Because the things that he's saying is like, pre-workout. Like you're doing it before you hit the gym or something like that. But, he's like, get your ass out of bed, no excuses, no nothing. But dude, like what if life is really that bad or that hard? What if you're really that stuck? You don't want to hear that. And in fact, I would be like, screw you. You don't know what it feels like. And that's really where I was at one point. I didn't want to hear it. So not only do we live in a hustle culture, we also live in a world where we have social media. The thing that can be one of the best things, like the best gifts in our lives, but it also can be the least beneficial. It allows us to have this constant comparison to other people that tricks us into thinking everyone has it together all the time. That family is perfect. Their life is perfect. They never have a bad day. Why? Because we're only seeing the best of the best on social media, right? And that's the problem. We don't know how to shut out the noise. Everywhere we look, everything we hear, it's a loud world. Our world is so loud and it does not shut up. And when we're going through it, it seems like we just can't get away. We can't stop. We have to keep going. We can't give ourselves permission to not be the best versions of ourselves. We can't press a button to make it all go away because that's just unrealistic. So what on earth can we do? We're going to dive into that next. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break for our advertisements. And now is the time that I want you to share this with someone who needs to hear this. Someone who needs to slow down. Someone who needs to give themselves permission to not be okay. Because when we come back, we're going to dive into how we can normalize slowing down. The difference between pausing and quitting. And the line between giving yourself grace to not be okay versus actually getting stuck there. I cannot wait for what's ahead. All right, guys, we are back, and I'm so incredibly excited for the second half of this episode because we are going to dive in to how we can actually slow down in a fast-paced world. I've told you all of these things about how we need to give ourselves permission and how we need to be able to feel the things that we need to feel, but knowing that the world just doesn't stop. Knowing that we still have to go to work. Knowing that we can't lay in bed for a week straight. Knowing that we still need to take care of our kids, that we still have a spouse or a girlfriend or a boyfriend or friends, knowing that we still have responsibilities that need to be taken care of. So how can we possibly put those things to the side? And in this life that we live today, oftentimes it's not those things that we're putting to the side, it's ourselves. And it's our own emotions and our own feelings. And we're just not slowing down. We're not giving ourselves permission. So I'm really diving into this week because I've taken some time off lately. Just from podcasting, from everything. The last couple of weeks, I really struggled. Truthfully, I really struggled. I kind of got into this little rut where like I was super crabby, super tired. I was trying to figure out why I was feeling the things that I was feeling. I was extremely fatigued. I honestly wanted to just be left alone. I wanted to lay in bed for a few days. And those things are really, really new to me because I felt like I hadn't gone through those things in either like a really long time, and it just kind of hit me out of nowhere. So not only was I feeling those things, but then I also was really confused. I was like, okay, what am I doing differently? Why am I off balanced? Why don't I just feel like myself? And I mean, I really, truthfully, I broke down. I hated not feeling like me. I hated feeling like I needed to keep going, but I just didn't want to. I just wanted everything. I wanted the world to stop. So I kind of got myself into this like cycle where I kept thinking, okay, tomorrow's going to be better. And then I was crabby. And then I was crabby because I was crabby. And then I was crabby because I was tired. And then I was like, okay, tomorrow's going to be better. And then I was tired. And then I was crabby. And then I was crabby because I was tired and crabby. Like, it just was this crazy cycle where I was not helping myself in any way, shape, or form. And so I felt like a lot of things were just coming to me. And I'm like, all right, this is something that I need to talk about because right now I need to give myself permission to just not be my best self because I wasn't. Like, I was definitely not the best mom. I was so much more fatigued and crabby and so much less patient. I certainly was not the best girlfriend. I was crabby and wanted to be left alone. Like, I probably gave my boyfriend like 3 hugs out of the entire week when that is just not how I am. And so I felt awful. But the problem was that I wasn't giving myself permission to just be like, today is just not the day. Like, the bar is low. And if I just get through, here are my expectations. Don't expect a lot out of me. Give me some grace because I got to give myself some grace. I didn't give myself any grace. So because of that, I want to dive into how we can actually give ourselves permission to slow down. Not compare ourselves to others. Allow us to know that it's okay to not always be the best versions of ourselves. And I want to give you some tools and some advice to help us give ourselves grace without also remaining stuck in those negative places. Because you and I know very well that yes, we can rot in bed for a day. Maybe even 2 days. But we can't rot in bed for a week. We can't continue to stay in that negative mindset. Is it okay if we are there for a little while? Is it okay if we are there for a season? That's okay. But then we need to do the very best that we can to get out of it because that is not the place that we belong. There has to be a balance between giving ourselves permission and choosing to just stay stuck. Like, where is the line here between, okay, today sucks and this hard thing happened and I got to give myself grace and the bar is low and, today I can't bring everything to the table versus you're just choosing to be there. You're choosing to stay there. You're choosing to, I am like the queen of throwing myself a pity party and feeling bad for the seasons that I was in. I had to learn the very hard way that a lot of the obstacles that I faced in my life were because of me. Because mentally I was staying stuck in a place that I just didn't belong. So it is our responsibility to make sure that we are figuring out what is off balance. What do we need to do if we feel like rotting in that bed for a week straight? It's okay if you're sad or if you're tired, if you're not feeling like yourself. That is okay. But at what point do we need to actually do something about it? It is our responsibility to not just give ourselves permission to know that it's okay, to not feel like, we can be the best versions of ourselves. But it is also our responsibility to push ourselves to do what we need to do to get to where we need to be. And that's something that you have to ask yourself. Where do you want to be? Because nobody can want something for you. And that is something that I have learned the hard way, that you can love someone so deeply. You can care about your partner, your friend, your daughter, your son. You can care about them so incredibly much. Your parents. But you cannot want something for them more than they do in order for there to be a change. They have to want it. And so if you want it more for them, the only thing that you're going to do is run out of energy. People have to want these things for themselves. Because if someone wants to stay in that negative place forever, they will. Unless they decide that they're going to do something about it. And part of that process, again, is giving themselves permission, giving themselves grace to not be ashamed for going through the things that they're going through. Because in this life, we don't have to be perfect. And although it feels like in society that we need to always have it all together, we need to always be in a good mood, and we need to always just no, that's just not how it works. We can't compare ourselves to other families, to other people, to other journeys. It is ours, and it is okay if it's not perfect, and it's not going to be. It's okay if it doesn't even look how we thought it would. It's okay if there's a road that comes that we never expected, and that is just how it's going to go. Those things are okay, and we have to give ourselves permission to go through those things. So what can we do to push ourselves to not just stay stuck in a place, right? Like, let's say we've given ourselves permission. We know that this is a rough season or a rough day, and we've given ourselves, just grace. And we've told ourselves that, hey, you know what? It's okay. Like, that is the first step. Not feeling bad about where we are, about the season that we're in, about the day that we're having, because we are just human people. Like, that is it. We're just human. So those things are okay. What can we do next, though? We can reframe rest as being productive. So this is where we're going to start rewiring our brains. We're going to start seeing rest as being productive. Remind yourself that rest is what's going to fuel your growth. It's not wasted time. And whatever that looks like for you, maybe that means that you are watching one TV show at night. What it meant for me was I was making sure that I was maybe meditating or literally just laying on the floor, stretching for like 10, 15 minutes a night. Maybe I was reading, just sitting in a quiet place. Maybe that means that for a half a day, you're binge watching something. I don't know. Whatever it looks like for you. And whatever your balance of, getting out of your rut and like not staying there. If watching The Office, like that is my show, watching 3 of those episodes in a row before you're like, all right, I'm ready. Like, if you need to do that, do that. That's rest. Get rest. You deserve that. And that is what's going to fuel your growth. I've noticed that so much in my life where I'm just not stopping and I'm just going. I'm going straight from, the gym in the morning to school and then activities in the evening. And all of a sudden it's like the first time that I'm laying in bed, it's 9, 10 o'clock and I haven't even stopped just to like reset or to ask myself how I'm feeling. And then all of a sudden it's like we do that over and over and over again. Suddenly we're irritable. Suddenly we have no energy. And suddenly we kind of become this different versions of ourselves that we don't even recognize. Rest is a good thing. Set rhythms and not races. Build in pauses throughout the day. Maybe you're taking walks. Maybe you're having some quiet time. That's actually one thing that is so huge for me, where life has felt like it's so loud, and like I feel like I just cannot slow down, where I've literally built in quiet time. So like when I'm done working out in the morning, I will just like, it sounds weird, so if you ever see me doing it, like, don't question me. I will just like lay on the floor, like where nobody is, and I don't even have my music on, nothing. Like I will just lay there and I'll just stretch, or I will get into my car. I used to always have music like blaring, and now I will just take a quiet drive home. Whatever it is, get your quiet time. Maybe it means you're having device-free nights, or, device-free hours, maybe even minutes, whatever it looks like. Just making sure that you are getting those things into your routine. Challenge the hustle culture. Question the belief that busyness equals worth. We have built this picture, especially of women, right? Where like, and it's always been like this for men, where they're just working, and they're working so incredibly hard. They're working from the time that it's dark in the morning till it's dark at night, and we're running around always on our phones, and we always have our calendars just jam-packed, and that is what decides how worthy we are and how many things we're involved in. And as parents, how many things we have, how many things we're involved in, and how many things our kids are involved in. Like, that has anything to do with our worth. But it's what society has kind of created, this toxic picture of what individuals, what men and women and families need to be these days, when we all just need to slow the hell down. Celebrate small wins. Notice the little steps forward, not just the big milestones. If you didn't feel like getting out of bed for 3 entire days, and you decided to just go and walk to your mailbox, give yourself a freaking pat on the back, because that's huge. And we have to remember that one tiny little step is what actually changes everything. I'll never forget the story of, and I don't even remember who told me this. Maybe it was on social media. Maybe I watched it. I have no idea. But it's coming to my mind about where a man had, he was on his journey to lose weight. And so he started his journey basically by like not even wanting to go to the gym. Like, getting to the gym is the hardest part, as we know, as we've heard before. So he literally would show up to the gym and be like, screw that. I'm not working out today. I'm not doing that. I'm not even going to walk a lap. He wouldn't even walk a lap. He wouldn't even jump on the bike, right? Like the easiest things that you could do. He literally went to the gym, sat down on the couch, and read a magazine, and then went home. That was it. That was an incredibly small step. But guess what? He got to the gym. And then the next week or the next month or whatever, he was like, oh, okay, all right, I've read my magazine. Now I'm going to take a lap. Whatever. I'll just do a freaking lap, right? And eventually, as you can tell how this story is going to go, his weight loss journey, his health journey, in fact, like he completely changed as a person, because that just going to the gym and reading a magazine and then walking a lap turned into literally a entire fitness, like health change for him. He became an entirely different person, and he lost a ton of weight, and he developed these very healthy habits that weren't just around for just a short period of time. They changed his entire life, and he kept those habits because he just made small changes, not huge milestones. Another one is modeling it for others. This one is so huge because we live in a world where not many people see it, and we only know what we know. And until we know better, then we can actually do better. So if we've grown up in, an environment or a household where this is not modeled, we're not modeled to slow down or to give ourselves permission or to express our feelings. This is the opportunity where we can actually model it to others, meaning that we're going to talk openly about when you're slowing down, maybe when you're feeling some type of way, when you're going through hard things. So then others actually feel like they have the permission to do the exact same thing. Grace means self-compassion. You allow yourself to feel, cry, rest, and not be perfect. This is something that I had to actually teach myself to do. I grew up in a home where I had parents who were very, emotionally available, but at the same time, I really fought a lot of the really hard things that I was feeling. And so I caught myself as an adult, like growing up, when I felt like crying, I would push it down. I didn't want anybody to see me cry. I didn't want anybody to see me upset. And now if I feel those things, I'm like, screw it. It's coming out. Because if you hold it down, it's just going to stay in your body and it's going to affect your nervous system. So let those things come, because otherwise they're going to come eventually, just in huge bursts. So if there's anything that I want you to understand today, if there's anything that I want to leave you with today, it's understanding that healing is not perfectly linear. It is not a straight line starting from the bottom, going up until you reach some point of perfection. In fact, what healing really looks like is various lines going up and down, in some intensely going down and some intensely inclining. I seen a video on my social media of someone trying to describe what healing actually looks like. And it was a cup filled with some sort of, dye, some sort of color with, water filled to the top. And so the entire glass, looked black or brown. And then they put it underneath the sink and let the water just slowly wash all of the water that was in the glass away. So at first it's like, okay, that's not doing anything. And it really does look like it's not doing anything. It looks like nothing changes. And then all of a sudden you slowly start to see the color fade. And it's because the clean water, of course, is rushing in and making all the other water go over top of the glass and rush out. And that truly is what healing looks like. So by the end of the video, when it, is explaining, this is what healing is, and this is how it happens in our hearts, and this is what the journey looks like. A lot of the times it doesn't seem like we're getting anywhere. It feels like we're stuck. And then all of a sudden we slowly start to take small steps. We slowly start to notice change. And maybe sometimes that means that we have really good days and really, really bad days. And sometimes we go forward and sometimes we go back. But by the end of the video, of course, everything is washed away and it's clean water. All of the residue, the dye, everything that was in the cup before is gone. And I think if we keep that picture in our minds, we can truly understand that healing is such a process. And it's a beautiful process. And while it's a beautiful one, it's not easy. One of the best phrases that I've ever heard in my entire life is when I was listening to a podcast, and it was about a man, he was a co-host, and he was talking about, he comes from a super hard life. And so he talked about all the challenges that he faced, and, now he advocates for peace. And one of the things that he said became like his motto was that he can quit tomorrow. And at first that really confused me because I was like, why on earth would you give yourself permission to ever quit? And he went in further to talk about how, he was in such a dark place that he couldn't think beyond tomorrow. He couldn't think beyond that. Sometimes he couldn't even think beyond the hour. And I totally related to that. And so he talked about how every single day he would wake up and he would give himself permission. If he wanted to, he could quit tomorrow. He could quit the next day. And whatever quitting meant, that's what he could do. He gave himself permission. So every single day he would make it one more day. And then every single day, the next day, he would give himself permission again to quit if he wanted to. But keeping that mentality and giving himself control and freedom in allowing himself to give himself permission to do whatever he needed to do to just get through another day. He didn't need motivational speeches. He didn't need an insane amount of positivity. He needed just permission to go one more day, to just survive. And sometimes that is the best that we can do. Now, the goal is that we thrive. The goal is that we make the best of our lives that we possibly can. But first, in order for us to get there, we have to go through the things that are meant for us. We have to experience the feelings that we're supposed to feel, and those are not always easy. We have to give ourselves permission to do what we need to do to make it just one more day. So today, as we wrap up our conversation, I want to leave you with this. Life was never meant to be lived at full speed all the time. You don't have to plaster on positivity when you're hurting, and you certainly don't have to carry the weight of perfection in a world that glorifies it. Slowing down doesn't make you weak. Pausing doesn't mean that you've quit. And giving yourself grace doesn't mean that you're stuck. It means you're human and you're honoring your journey. So the next time you feel like you're falling behind, remember, you're not in a race. You are in a life. And it's okay if some seasons look messy or heavy or unfinished. What matters is that you don't stay in the places you don't belong. Give yourself permission to rest. Give yourself permission to not be okay. But never forget this. Your story is not finished yet. The hardest chapters aren't the end. They're the middle. And you are still becoming. Thank you so incredibly much for being with me here today. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who might need the same reminder. And as always, keep choosing the high road, because even when the way is hard, it will always lead you home to yourself. And that is where you belong. God bless you.